Oh, Ryan called.
On your left. Whoops. Accidentally butt dialed mom. Accident. Yeah, no, sorry, I'm focused.
Accident? Okay, wait. You had an accident? I'm gonna call. I'm calling you.
Hey, good shot.
Oh, come on, where are you? He's probably lying in a ditch somewhere. Why aren't you responding? I know you need me. I know, I just feel it. Something's wrong. I can tell Ryan needs me, so stay close to your phone, okay?
Uh-huh.
What was mom yelling about?
I have no idea.
Mom?
You're alive.
Honey, what?
You have a key to my room?
Yeah.
She has a key to
This
you?
room is disgusting.
Wait a minute,
I'm
she's at the
texting you
store.
for
What are you
2
doing?
hours. Are you playing with Dad? Seriously? Give me that. You are both in so much trouble.
A fool or foolish people, just for our case today, foolish people or fools continually behave in ways that hurt themselves or hurt others. Do you know someone? Are you trying to reconcile with someone who's a fool? They're a toxic person, and their toxicity is causing collateral damage in your own life. A fool is someone who does not take ownership for their side. They refuse to take responsibility for what is his or hers to own. Fools, this is wild how we can do this as humans, but foolish people, they don't change their own behavior to meet the demands of life. Instead, they want reality around them to change to accommodate for the way they want to live. Have you ever met someone like this? Are you in a relationship, a challenging relationship of bad blood with someone like this? What do? The guy who wrote a lot of the wisdom literature in the Bible, it's a lot of it's poetry. His name was Solomon. He was a king from thousands of years ago. He said it this way, in both a profound way and a disgusting way. He said, in Proverbs 26:11, as a dog returns to its vomit. Have you ever seen a dog return to its vomit? That's kind of a disturbing sight. What's even more disturbing though, because dogs are dogs. I really enjoy dogs. I like dogs. And what's amazing are when dog owners kiss their dogs on the mouth. That always blows my mind. I think, who would do that? Do you not realize this is the same creature that will eat its vomit if you give him the chance? Anyway, he says, as a dog returns to its vomit, so do fools repeat their folly. Fools will continue to do the same thing over and over again, even if it's hurtful to other people and to themselves. They'll continue to make the same terrible choices, hurtful decisions, awful, erratic, irresponsible behavior that will hurt you if you continue to extend yourself. So when do you say enough is enough? And at what point do you establish a boundary? That's the term that we're going to use to talk about that line that is most helpful, most important to draw. When it's you and it's someone that you're in a relationship with, because a lot of times these are relationships where you can't choose but to be in a relationship with this person. Maybe you're going to see this person at Thanksgiving or at Christmas. Anyone else in your life, you would have cut bait and said, you know what? This isn't worth it. The juice is not worth the squeeze, so to speak. But at what point is it necessary to draw a boundary? When a fool's irresponsibility, when someone who's toxic and their irresponsibility is creating collateral damage in both their life and your life, you need to create a boundary. When a fool is putting you into harm's way, you need to create a boundary. Because boundaries are the demarcation They're the line that delineate what depends on you, what it is, because there is something that depends on me. But a boundary establishes this is what depends on me, and this is what depends on you. Boundaries separate what you are responsible for and what the other person is responsible for. In other words, a boundary allows you and I to understand, you know what? This is what I'm responsible for. This is me. But then this line is where I end and you begin. And that's the only way we can have peace about this relationship. There's a book that was written a number of years ago that it really is the seminal work in this, along this idea, in this category. It's actually called Boundaries, written by a guy named Henry Cloud and John Townsend. And maybe today the best thing you could do is just go read this book. It's a fascinating book. It's such a helpful book. Any graduate school that is talking about psychology usually refers to or even will assign this book because it's such a great treatment on the idea of boundaries. And so maybe the best thing you could do today is just go read this book. But I want to give you just a couple of principles and thoughts that Paul, the same person who wrote If It's Possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone, a couple things that he's told us, given to us about how we know what it is that depends on us, what it is that depends on me, and what it is that depends on you. This is found in a letter he wrote called Galatians 6, verse 2. He begins this way. He says, carry each other's burdens. Makes sense, great thing, it's very helpful. In fact, he says, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If you're not a follower of Jesus, if you don't consider yourself a Christian, this is optional for you. But if you follow Jesus, if you call yourself a Christian, this is an assignment. This is something that Jesus himself has asked us to do. And now Paul is just passing it on. He's saying, yeah, this is the way we're supposed to live. We're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself, which means at times we carry each other's burdens. What is a burden? A burden is just anything of excess, anything that is too big for one person to carry alone. We are responsible to help bear any burden that has become too big for someone else. We are responsible to bear for each other the burden that has become too big for someone to bear alone. And then Paul's going to tell us, hey, while you're carrying and while you're helping out, while you're lending a hand, getting the other side of the couch, let me share with you the posture that you ought to have as you think through trying to help this person carry the burden that's been given to them. In verse 3, he says this. He says, if anyone thinks there's something when they're not, they deceive themselves. Have you ever met someone who thinks there's something and they're not? Have you ever caught yourself thinking you're something, realizing that you're not? All of us do this from time to time. In fact, it's the egocentric world that we all live in, right? If everybody's life is a play, usually you play the lead role, right? It's the way my life works. I mean, my life, in my mind, revolves around me. I mean, it's just the way it works. And he says, hey, I'm just letting you know, if you think that you're something when you're not, you trick yourself. I think he's saying this because our temptation, when someone else has a burden that's popped up in their life, our temptation is to look at them and go, what is your problem? I would never get myself in that situation. The two dangerous parts of that are, number one, that's not a great perspective to help someone from, right? No one likes to be helped by someone who thinks, you're beneath me. I wouldn't even get into the situation in the first place. But then secondly, I think he's telling us this to say, hey, you're not immune from the very thing that has popped up in their life. So as you try to help someone, remember, don't think you're something when you're not. You're actually deceiving yourself. And then he introduces this idea of personal responsibility. He says, and so each one should test their own actions. My temptation is to pick up a magnifying glass, or in some cases a set of binoculars, and try to find everything wrong with your life. But he says, no, pick the mirror up and look into your own. Examine your own life so that you can ask the question, am I doing what I need to be doing? Before I go and try to help you carry your burden, am I carrying for myself what I need to carry? Because I should not ask you to help me carry something that I'm myself not carrying. And you shouldn't do that either. So he says, examine your own actions. Because he says there's something good that will happen from this. Here's what he says. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. This is the healthy kind of pride. This is not the sinful kind of. This is good pride, like the pride you feel when you graduate from college or graduate from high school or finish the race. You got the certificate, the diploma, the award, and there's something good that says, great job. Doesn't it feel good to carry what you're supposed to carry? That's self-gratification. That's a good thing. And then he says something that's very tricky. It almost seems contradictory to what he's saying earlier. He says, for, verse 5, each one should carry their own load. Hang on a second. What? He just said carry for each other the burden. Now he's saying for each one of us should carry our own load. Our load in this case is whatever it is that's been given to us to carry. An example of your load would be your feelings. No one's responsible for your feelings but you. Your attitude. No one can change your attitude but you. A lot of you are like, this is the speech I give my kids. That's right. Your behaviors. No one can change your behaviors but you. The responsibilities that God's entrusted to you. No one can carry those but you. That's your load. Couple months ago, one of our sons came home from our little preschool that we go to, and I said, hey, what'd you learn at school today? He was like, oh, I'll tell you. And he looks at me with these big wide eyes and he goes, I'm in charge of me. I'm like, cut my eyes on my wife. I'm like, who's teaching this kid this stuff? Like, what in the world? Where are we sending him to school? And he said, yeah, I'm in charge of me. Oh, thanks, guys. He said, I'm in charge of me. I'll tell you about this in just one second. He said, I'm in charge of me. No one can tell me how to. I'm like, whoa, what are you talking about? And he said, my teacher taught me that no one can make me change my attitude. No one can make me not hit Zachary. No one can make me not talk back. That I can only do that. He said, no one can make me not eat my cookies before my sandwich. I'm like, easy there. That's taking it a step too far. But the truth is true, that there are things that you are in charge of. So these are the two contradictory phrases he makes. He says, carry each other's burdens. Okay, so I'm supposed to help someone carry their burden. Yeah, a burden, as Dr. Cloud and Dr. Townsend tell us, a burden is like a boulder. A burden is like this huge boulder that I shouldn't try to carry alone because I can't lift this, especially with my legs and not my back, because that's where you cause back problems. But I can't lift this alone. That's what a burden is. A burden is something that you were not meant to carry alone. Maybe a burden looks like someone got sick in his family and her family. Maybe a burden looks like someone lost their job. Maybe a burden looks like someone left, a spouse just left. Maybe a burden looks like someone had a house fire or their house flooded. This would be a burden that we're not meant to carry alone. And so he says, so carry for each other, help each other carry the burden that's been given to them. But then he says this, he says, each one should carry their own load. This is not contradicting what he said because he uses a different word. He uses the word load. This Greek term burdens is the word baros, which means in excess, anything huge, large, anything that normal life would not bring about. And then this word load can be translated as, it's where we get the word portion. That there is your portion to carry. So a burden is a boulder, and a load, your daily load, is your backpack. It's the backpack that you've been given to carry. What's in your backpack? Well, there's a lot of things in your backpack that only you can carry. There's your feelings, your responsibilities, your attitudes, and your mortgage, and your electricity bill, and putting food on the table for you to eat. No one can do that for you. That's for you and I to carry, right? I shouldn't ask you to carry my load, and you shouldn't ask me to carry your load. That there is a boundary that needs to exist between what is mine to carry and the burden that's popped up in my life or your life that we need help to carry. See, we are responsible. We're responsible to help carry each other's burdens, and we're responsible for carrying our own load. If you have a relationship that's characterized by bad blood, and you're trying to do all that you can do, and you're trying to help out, and you're trying to reconcile, and it feels like you continue to give, and continue to reach out, and continue to try to help out, and in doing so, you're carrying your own load, and now this person is also asking you to carry their own load, that's not gonna end in a great way. That's not gonna make things better. It will only make things worse. Why? Well, because when we feel responsible for carrying one another's load, we rob them of experiencing the outcomes of their decisions. When I try to hand my load to you and get you to carry my load, I miss out on what it feels like to carry my load. And that's a positive thing, right? When you carry your own load, it feels good. Do you remember maybe the first time you moved out, the way it moved out of your parents' home maybe, the way it felt when you paid your first rent, when you paid off your car, bought that first car, maybe when you did something and you're like, man, this is my load to carry. This feels good. There's positive things that happen inside of me when I carry my own load. It's the outcomes of my decision, and vice versa. When you don't carry your load, when you choose to lay your load down, what happens to you? Well, you could get evicted, right? This nice group of people from the electrical company will send you a letter and say, hey, just want to give you a heads up, we're going to turn your power off because it seems like you don't want it anymore because you're not paying for it. That's what happens when you take your load and when you lay it down. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's hard, but it's kind of a good thing because it's an outcome from the decision that we make. Sometimes in relationships that are characterized by bad blood, it's extremely important to draw a line between what depends on me and what depends on you. They tell a story in this book that goes like this. If you're worried about your yard, you're a big yard person. I don't know if you are or you aren't. I would put myself right down the middle. I don't know. I've got a guy next door, golf course kind of yard. It is amazing. But let's just say my other neighbor, his yard's brown. I get so frustrated with his brown yard because he's not watering it. I'm watering my yard. You should be watering your yard on Tuesdays and Thursdays or whatever day is appropriate for you to water. So what if I get frustrated at his brown yard and I change my sprinklers, the setting on my sprinklers, to now spray into his yard? What will happen? What will happen to his yard? His yard will turn green. What will happen to my yard? It will turn brown. And the problem with that is that he's being irresponsible and he's happy. I'm being responsible and I'm miserable. And that's what happens when we try to carry each other's load, is I'm allowing you, or maybe you're allowing me, to be irresponsible and happy, which is not a healthy thing. See, you are not helping someone by carrying their load. You might be trying to help them, you might be trying to reconcile with them, but you're not helping them by carrying their load. In fact, you're actually helping them by letting them experience the consequence from not carrying their load. And this doesn't sometimes feel like a Christian thing to do because sometimes as Christians, we feel this need to suffer in a relationship. Well, shouldn't we just continue to show mercy and continue to show grace and continue to forgive? Yes, we should. However, unconditional love necessitates conditional assistance at times. Unconditional love necessitates conditional assistance. One reason is because I don't have unlimited ability to assist. And you probably don't either. The hard, maybe the most challenging part of this is when you're someone who has a lot of means, a lot of opportunity to help, this can be really challenging because you can offer a lot of assistance. I think that's why Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G. said, "Mo money, mo problems," right? If you don't have any money, this is not hard. You know what? I love you, and I would love to be able to help you, but I can't. End of discussion. But if you have the ability to help, it's really hard because it doesn't feel loving to conditionally assist someone. But it actually is maybe the most loving thing you could do. To say, you know what? I'm gonna draw a line here. I'm gonna establish a boundary. And that's yours to carry. And if you don't carry that load, I hate it, but you're going to experience the consequences of not carrying your load. One of the best words in establishing boundaries is the word no. Especially when it comes to someone who continually wants to borrow money, someone who maybe wants to live in your house, someone who feels like they're controlling you through manipulation or guilt, someone who seems like they're just really harmful or hurtful, someone who makes it feel like they're taking advantage of you because they're asking you to carry the load that's been given to him or to her. A great word is no.